Hey everybody, Assalamu alaikum. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notify button so you know when you're getting new episodes. And we just want to grow this project. I thank you in advance. Without further ado, let's get it rolling. The Shout Out Show. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. This is me, Preacher Moss, the host of SOS, the Shout Out Show. I want to thank you for coming. I want to welcome everybody for spending a little bit of time with us today. I hope you're having a great day, and I hope that this broadcast will even expand your day a little bit better. Shouts out. I always give shouts out to people who are coming on the show for the first time. Please do us a favor. Help your brother out. Click that link and click that subscribe button so we can continue to grow this podcast. It doesn't happen without growth. I'm asking you to help us be an active part of our success and summarily your success too. Thank you for coming. For all the other folks that come, shout out my shout out family, my shout out show family, shout out show soldiers, if you will. Thank you. Thank you. Because you know what? And we all, not in a weird way, but a very nuanced way, man. This has definitely inspired me creativity on the creative side, and also just on the emotional, intellectual side. You know, people see me and they think, oh, preacher, I tell a joke. You know, life is not always about jokes, brothers and sisters. A lot of times, some of the comedy that I've come up with has come from real experiences, and I just have to wrap the language of humor around them to make the point about where I'm coming from and what I'm actually talking about and why it's important. And I thank each and every one of you who's ever come to a show or bought a DVD or bought a t-shirt. You made that dream possible. But I have to also caution myself as well as other folks that language, intention are very, very valuable things. I mean, they have an incredible richness, robustness, and you have to be very, very careful how you use it. Now, I'm saying that because I definitely want to temper today's discussion, if you will, and give a shout out to Sister Ree. I hope feeling better with those kidney stones. I really have to speak to why it's important to understand language, because language frames emotions, language frames intention. And I was thinking about this, and I was talking to brother Umar Hakim from Encourage. He's going to be one of our guests on the show September the 5th. Beautiful brother. But we started talking about the game of identification, the game of race here in the United States, the game of race throughout the country. And I came up with this title, which is, what does it mean to be a person of color? Now, I told everybody what it means to be black in America. And one of the things I highlighted was being black in America means that you're always going to get reminders, symbols, gestures that you're not safe. And I'm going to flip this a little bit, because this idea of what does it mean to be a person of color came to me early in my life. And I'm not talking about high school, or I'm talking about elementary school. I'm talking about second grade. Why, man? Most of you guys know when I had to go to integrated school. It was around that time, school busing, all that type of stuff. And most of my teachers in my elementary school I enjoyed, but there was one teacher I did not enjoy. She was my second grade teacher. Her name was Miss Deirdre. And I did not like Miss Deirdre. I mean, literally, I don't hate anybody, but as a child, believe me, if she was on fire, I wouldn't take the time to spit on her. As a child, I've grown a little bit better. I'd give her a bottle of water now, but back then I wouldn't even spit on this lady. And I realized back then, what does it mean to be a person of color? It means that you're going to be reminded that you're a person of color. And that was the first thing that I learned in second grade. This is not a huge race thing. But it's very important to talk about this because we're in that space now. If you're watching some of the GOP convention, you're going to hear a lot of words, brothers and sisters, a lot of reflection about color, people of color. And looking at people of color now, and not as they're valuable, but they are, what's the word I'm looking for? Tokens to be played in the game. Like you would do so in Las Vegas, you throw a token on the ground and on a roulette table. So it means that you don't control your value. But I was talking about my second grade teacher, Miss Deirdre. If I don't remember her name, we ran into trouble when I first showed up in her classroom. For those that don't know, I was an early kid. My parents moved from Washington D.C. and we moved to this suburb in Maryland, Seabrook, Maryland. And they had two choices for me. Either I have to start over kindergarten or they put me in first grade all the way through. Well, I had to go first grade and I was really a kindergartner, but I had to catch up. That was my mom. You just catch up with everybody else. And I was black in that class. It was two other people who were dark skinned, but we were all dark skinned. And the only thing about me was, I asked a lot of questions. Miss Deirdre didn't like that. And some of the things she talked about, you got to understand, I'm a second grader. So I'm questioning what you're telling me, not because I'm being disrespectful, but out of having an inquisitive mind. I'm asking because I heard different things. We had some disagreements on Civil War, African American history. Now, keep in mind, I had a full volume encyclopedia of African American history at my disposal in my house. So you can see where these things are coming from. We had a fallout. And it was interesting as a young guy because I started asking, what does it mean to be a person of color? And I remember the thing that I wrote on my paper because I was in detention. She put me in a corner and I was supposed to write out some kind of apology. I'm sorry, whatever. And she was two-faced, meaning that when I told my parents, she was like, no, that's not what happened. I put them over there. I was like, lady, you put me in the corner like I was a dunce, but the parents have to listen to the, adults have to believe the teacher, whatever. And in this particular situation, it gave me a pause to think, brothers and sisters. And that pause to think in the second grade is where I'm going to begin our discussion, if you allow me to. What happened in the second grade was I asked myself at a very young age, Preacher Moss, what does it mean to be a person of color? I asked, what does it mean to be a person of color? I was a church boy. So first I said, God made me what I am. And the response after that, are you okay with it? So to be a person of color, I'm okay with being a person of color. I have no choice. I'm a person of color. That's what it is. But then the epiphany hit me at a very young age. What does it mean to be a person of color to people who are not persons of color? Hear what I'm saying? What does it mean to be a person of color to people who are not persons of color? Therein lies the rub, brothers and sisters. I realized in the second grade, up to this time right now, I'm 53 years old, that being a person of color means more the people who are not persons of color than the people who are actually persons of color. And it will always be that way. Summarily, it's almost like you have to take a test for a class you don't need. And in taking that test, there's a pass fail, but nobody gives you the information so you can be successful in passing the test. And then you go out of yourself, out on your own resources, and you gather the information to be able to pass the course successfully. And then you take the course. Instead of them saying that you passed, they say you cheated. You must take the course again. And when you take the course again, you take it and you do all this stuff, and it doesn't move you anywhere. It doesn't take you to the next level. It's like a revolving door, if you will. And that, sadly, is the motion for people of color in the United States. It's like you want me to play a game, that I don't want to play. Then I play the game, and I get efficient at the game. And as long as I'm losing the game, you're happy. But the moment that I have some free thought, I reach into my own human excellence to come up with a different solution, and I win the game, all of a sudden I cheated. And then I can't win the game. It's now best out of 5, best out of 7, which means we're going to continually play the game till you get the result that you want. And even when you play the game, and this is the cruel one, even when you play the game and you play by the rules, you can still be disqualified at any point in time. So the question is not what does it mean to be a person of color to me, what does it mean to be a person of color to the person who's not a person of color? Meaning that I realized at a very young age, and I'll get back to Miss Deirdre in the 2nd grade, that when I would walk down the hall, I could see her talking to other teachers about me. The look. Now, to a 2nd grader, brothers and sisters, that's a lot. Because in 1st grade, 2nd grade, even up to 3rd grade, you understand when somebody doesn't like you, they may not like you. But it never forms in your mind and a young mentality that somebody would willingly harm you. Let me say it again. That somebody would willingly harm you. Now, there's levels to harm. It's physical harm, there's emotional harm, there's mental harm, but there's levels to this harm. And what I found was I had to work extremely hard at Miss Deirdre's class because in my mind, if I got 100 on the test, she was going to make it a 50. If I got 100 on the test, she was going to make it a 60. And that psychological pressure is what a lot of us deal with today. We're not dealing with people who are credible, understanding our experience. All they do is reserve a space where they can judge it. So when you look at things like Kenosha, you look at things like Minneapolis, you look at things like Georgia, you look at things like Texas and Black folk who've been murdered in these places. The question is, what did it mean to be a person of color in that situation? Because being a person of color, sadly, has allowed people to break the law. And I say sadly, not that it's new, it's just that it continues. It allows people to break the law. Being a person of color allows people to compromise, if you will, everything from your freedom to your life. And you have to be that person of color. That's what Miss Deirdre taught me in the 2nd grade. She said, you're Black to me for a reason. And why I was Black to Miss Deirdre? You know why? Because it allowed her to turn around and tell all these teachers, he's not smart, he doesn't pay attention, he's not prepared for class. Did anybody realize that? I'm sorry, I was in a classroom, that age group was way advanced than I was. I was always trying to catch up. And alhamdulillah, all praise to Allah and my mother and my aunts, they made sure I kept up in class. But it was the thought, if I didn't have them and one other person whose protection I didn't know I had, but I had it. Her name was Miss Alveda Jones, my 6th grade teacher. And Miss Alveda Jones is the one that straightened out Miss Deirdre and explained to her. And she explained to me what it is to be a person of color, what it means to be Black. And she told me in the 2nd grade that people here don't see you as winning. They don't see you as learning. They don't see you as any kind of credible threat. And the moment you start studying, the moment you start performing, the moment you start thinking differently, they will have a different perspective of you. She said it won't make things easier, but it will make it a lot clearer to them exactly who they're dealing with. It's an interesting thing now because in the Muslim community, work with me here. We now have people who, when they say black, they throw brown next to it. Let me say it. I'll be honest. When they say black, they say brown. The black and brown. Brown people, brown people, brown people. And I love my Asian, Desi brothers and sisters. But you co-opted the thing brown. You got to do your homework. Because the brown that we talk about was Latinos and Native Americans. You see how quickly this thing has turned? Just in a number of years, people have moved out one group of people that were persons of color and replaced them with another. And nobody talked about it. We happily say it. And the reason why people will talk about I'm brown, because Latinos are under fire and you can't find any Native Americans. So not to be belligerent, anything like that. I try to make sure that I can make a clear connection, because these conversations that I'm having now, I realize if something were to happen to me, God forbid, say I walk out of the house, I get struck by a bolt of lightning, or a bus hits me in my backyard, or whatever, the information that Ms. Jones gave me, I can't share. That's why I love social media. That's why I like this whole idea of putting stuff on YouTube, because if something happened to me, this information is meant to be mined. When I said mind, I don't mean like in a mind. I mean it's a mind talk. And sadly, we don't have enough of them. I'll give a shout out to my brother. What's up, JT? Assalamu alaikum. And the sad part now is that people, particularly young people, when they looked at the question is, what does it mean to be a person of color? They don't know. And they don't know because they don't know history. See, the sad thing about a John Lewis or a C.T. Vivian or people like that passing away is that wealth and knowledge is not just generational, it's strategic. When you lose strategic thinking in any type of situation, you're at a deficit. We have a president that won't recognize John Lewis and talks about he's done more than black people than any other president. You ain't doing no more than John Lewis. John Lewis has lapped you 3, 4, 5, 6 times. When you watch the Republican convention, turn down the volume. Listen to me. Turn down the volume. Get yourself a copy of Malcolm X's The Bullet and the Ballot. I want you to dub it. Match them up, if you will. Play them at the same time. And without the sound from the TV, listening to Malcolm talk, you will see exactly what he's talking about in the faces of the people on those TVs. Because that represents strategy. That represents a cohesive understanding of making people understand what it means to be a person of color. Now, this talk right here, I didn't even want to go here. I'll be honest, at the beginning of the week, I thought I was going to be talking about Kobe Bryant's birthday on Monday, Sunday and Monday. Between Sunday and Monday, a man got killed in Kenosha, Wisconsin. He didn't get killed in Kenosha, Wisconsin. But you know what? A part of him did get killed. His life, his expectations. I mean, he has his life, but now it's the quality of life. They say he got shot in the back 7, 8 times. Sadly, I sat here going, that doesn't bode well. Any kind of back injury, forget bullets, has long-term effects. And the city of Kenosha will never be the same. It'll never be the same. So I commend the athletes like LeBron James, and he's a smart guy too. Let me give LeBron James a little shout out. Because he came on and he started talking about Kenosha, and he made a connection. He didn't really say Kenosha. He said outside of Milwaukee. I loved it. Outside of Milwaukee. You know why? Because Milwaukee has more black people than Kenosha, for those that don't know. And the things that happen in Kenosha have already been happening in Milwaukee. And I commend Mr. James. I've never met him before, but he's talking to black youth about mobilizing around the vote, working the polls. See, that's strategy. Half the time when I look at television now, we're given the shiny stuff about being black. Oh, we're good singers, we're good dancers, but somehow we never get the credit for being great strategists. I'm talking about strategy and I'm talking about incredible levels of thinking, incredible level of contextualizing, incredible levels of conceptualizing what it is that we're dealing with day in, day out, day in, day out. And I feel personally that, you know what? Us old heads, we hold some responsibility. But you new heads, you young kids, you young kids, you don't listen. You don't sit down with the old folks. I say old folks, I don't mean old folks. I just say the wise ones, the people that have that hikmah, that wisdom that's gotten them through a certain place. I mean, I mean, there was a there was a thought in a KRS-One interview where he mentioned a woman who lived through slavery and they wrote a book. And the woman said something interesting about everybody talking about slavery. And she said, you know what? If you didn't go through it, shut up. She said, if you didn't go through it, shut up. Do you know how deep that is? Because when you look at slavery and things like that, we don't get all the information. We see an owner-slave relationship, but we overlook it that it's a relationship. There were levels to relationships. There were levels to being free in the South. There were levels to education. It's foolish in some regards to think that a person who comes from Africa, no language, no food, no education, no homes, all of a sudden he picks up a skill, whether it's picking cotton, whether it's planting, whether it's manufacturing. Here's my point. To do it over a period of years makes that person not a slave, it makes them skilled. It makes them skilled. And we don't like to say skilled because skilled implies that you have value that I can't control. They say, what does it mean to be colored? Be a person of color? It depends on what you're doing on the inside to determine and expand your skill. And brothers and sisters, I do want to slow down here a little bit because I don't want to miss something. I don't want to miss the fact that when I was in second grade, and though my teacher picked on me, Miss Deirdre, may Allah bless her. I don't hold anything against her. It was second grade. But what she did to me scared the other black kids in the classroom. It scared the other black kids. So if you ever want to know why I feel this way, it's because she made them feel some kind of way about being young persons of color. And they didn't want to go through what I was going through. So they dumbed it down. Remember I talked about playing a game you don't want to play? Remember I talked about playing a game you don't want to play? They don't give you the rules. It's unfair. They've set up every advantage that you're going to lose and you win anyway. And it just does nothing but incur more wrath to the point that you can't walk away a winner. You have to play the game over and over again till you lose. And then once you lose, these people want you to play it over and over again, knowing that in that situation, you're going to continue to lose. And then they walk away. They walk away. And when you're playing the game, your mind is so far gone, you automatically think you're going to lose. And that was my beef from second grade. And that's why it's my beef right now. It's my beef right now because there's the same type of attitude out here. The same type of attitude. Black people are treated a certain way in America. Latinos are treated a certain way in America. Muslims too. You're treated a certain way because to them, I won't say exactly who them is, but to the oppressor, I have to treat you a certain way to let folks know that that can be you. Appreciate the fact that you're not a person of color. Appreciate the fact that I'm not going to put you through the ringer. I'm not going to make you take those classes, if you will, or play those games. That's just for them. However, if you step outside of your zone, if you open your mouth too much, if you get out of order, I'm going to put you through that same game. And that keeps us divided. It keeps us divided, and it keeps us at one another's throats if you don't know what the game is. What does it mean to be a person of color? You know, the answer to that is, I don't know. I can give you bits and pieces, but I don't know. But here's the killer part. Why does it matter? You didn't create me. You didn't create me. You can't form me. All you can do is help me, or worse, force a perception on myself that you hope that I'm going to believe somewhere along the line, and then I'll press myself. Now, I would say that it's scary. Let me give a shout out to Sister Aika, walaikum assalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, all the way from Indonesia. I want to say this because their children going back to school this week. Now, you guys know about how I feel about sending these kids back to school, but I've seen it. I've seen it. Can't do anything about it. Parents are sending their kids back to school. Parents don't really wouldn't want to do it, but I can't afford. That's another thing. I can't afford childcare. Hey, you did afford childcare at some point in time. It's just that once you got them into kindergarten, first grade, you have to pay it anymore. School was a babysitter. That aside, there are children that will go to school this year. But everything that they've seen throughout the summer, everything they said throughout the summer, brothers and sisters, without the assistance of wisdom in many regards, without the system of counseling, they've seen the George Floyds. They've seen the Ahmaud Arbery's. They've seen this brother in Kenosha. And they're asking themselves, as they go through the educational experience in their young lives, is that what it means to be a person of color? When you think about it, brothers and sisters, got a lot of work to do. Stay blessed. I hope to see you soon. Preacher Moss, ShOUT Show. Take care. Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your ShOUT Show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next ShOUT Show. Simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from Tarifa Tar. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out tarifatar.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.